This video is brought to you by Law Excellence IAS Academy.
Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence R&D. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 16th September 2019. The first article for discussion: why India's growth figures are off the mark. If you see last time this year, ADB, IMF, World Bank, these were stating are expecting India's growth to be around 8%. It came down to 7, 6. Finally, today they are saying it is around 5% growth. Now, why within 1 year the growth estimates are so dramatically reduced? In this context, the author gives two reasons. If 5% growth is achieved, then also investment has to increase in the economy and also consumption has to increase. So, any growth, once it increases, obviously it creates more money with the people, more money leads to more consumption, and then more money also leads to more savings and more investments. So, the author argues that even this 5% growth is also not there because there is no consummate parallel growth of investment and consumption in the economy. And the second thing is, in Indian economy today, how we estimate the growth? It is based on the estimates of the formal sector. So informal sector, we take the estimates once in 5 years and we consider informal sector as a proxy of the formal sector. This informal sector adds for 45% of the output and almost 94% of the people got employed in the informal sector. Demonetization, GST, all these steps have worst affected the informal sector. So, the worst affected informal sector statistics are not being collected and taken into growth statistics. We are just making this particular growth estimates based on the formal sector and they are attributing that to the informal sector. So, because of this, we can say the real growth rate may be less than 5%. That's what the author is trying to say over here. And the second, various steps which are taken by the government, will they be fruitful? So in this context, first time when stimulus was announced by Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, she focused on banking sector and also capital markets to boost confidence into that. And in the second phase, she spoke about merger of the banks. And in the third phase, yesterday I think she spoke about exports and real estate sector, certain benefits. Now, none of these are expected to benefit the economy in the long run. Now, the worst part of this is the merger of the banks. It is announced at the worst part of the time. At this point, if we want to disturb the banking sector, the focus will be deviated away from the economy and towards the internal management. So, record organization, merger, all these things becomes more important rather than giving loans, operationalization of the economic activity for the banks. And then the most worrisome for the government today is all the fiscal deficit of India, if we take public sector undertaking, state government, central government, all put together is around 9%. So whatever the money RBI is giving as a dividend close to 1,76,000 crore rupees, it will go through filling this fiscal deficit to an extent, but it will not really help to pump up the economy. So there are 2 take home points. As the government estimated 5% growth, also not appears true for two reasons. One, the investment and the consumption is not growing to the estimates are parallel to the 5% growth. Second, in India today, informal sector is calculated as based as a proxy of the formal sector. So informal sector got worst affected because of GST and demonetization. And as we do not estimate informal sector, the 5% growth itself is a overestimate according to the author. A dilution that falls short of the law. This is about Article 370. We discussed enough on Article 370. So remember one thing over here. Article 370 subclause 1, it talks about the extension of Constitution of India to Jammu and Kashmir. It says that it shall be with the concurrence of the state government. And Article 370 subclause 3 states that repeal of the Article 370 shall happen with the approval of the Constitution Assembly of the state. How did the government achieve this? The concurrence of the state government, as there is no state government, it was seen as with the concurrence of the governor. And Article 370, subclause 3, what they stated, the Constitution Assembly. They have replaced the word Constitution Assembly with Legislative Assembly of the state. And as Legislative Assembly do not exist and President rule is in force, this function is performed by the Parliament. That's how Parliament has abrogated the Article 370 of the Constitution. And as governor is equated with the government at the state level, obviously the extension of the whole of the Constitution to the state has happened this way. The next point is mission successful, end product defunct. So there is train 18, that is Vande Bharat Express. It was the semi high speed train manufactured by Integral Coach Factory in Chennai. Remember, most of the government departments function in silos. The railways is a typical example. It means an officer functioning a railway do not see beyond his particular silo. So this particular train has a very successful journey and it was remarkably completed in 8 months, which is kind of a rarity in government. So how 18 months were achieved? The train built in 18 months, how was that happened? It is bypassing certain processes and the purpose of bypassing this process is to achieve a mission. So this motion mode activity has bypassed the process and achieved the targets within a stipulated time. But today, this rail or this train is no more running. What can be the reason? The first reason is the bureaucracy has initiated investigation for procedural violations. And the second thing is there are many turf wars between various departments within the railways itself, between various regions in railways. So there is something called unity of command which is missing. Turf war means, okay, this authority belongs to me, this area belongs to me. That is how the officers behave. So because of this, a successful project has come to a halt in India, and India is again depending upon the foreign companies to import their particular trains. Effort worth emulation. This is about Jana Suchana portal. So Rajasthan government has launched a portal, public information portal, which is also called Jana Suchana portal. If you see Right to Information Act, there is something called proactive disclosure of information. The proactive disclosure, it means even before someone applies or requests for your information, government can keep them transparently online. So this Jana Suchana portal can help us to achieve the same. And in this context, recently, RTI Act was amended to dilute the powers of the information commissioners, and they were made, or their autonomy was diluted, and they were made dependent on the executive of the day. So this Jan Suchana portal says that, if this initiative, what it does, it brings in information technology for improving the effectiveness of the RTI. So I say that technology and RTI, openness, it will create something called multiplier effect. I always use this multiplier effect. It is 1 plus 1 is not just 2, 1 plus 1 becomes 11. That is what I call it as multiplier effect. Next, waiting for reforms. This is about the third row of the stimulus packages announced by Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister of India. So see, there are cyclical factors and structural factors. Most of the structural factors are supply side. Let's take land reforms, labor reforms, all these are supply side constraints and they are more structural. And cyclical factors, these are more related to demand. Whatever the measures announced by Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, they are meant to stimulate the demand. But we have to understand one thing, the existing crisis in the economy, they are more related to structural factors and supply side factors. To an extent, the giving of boost or stimulus to an economy to stimulate demand side may be helpful in the short run, but in the long run what helps us is improvising the supply side problems or reforming the supply side that will provide for the long term solutions to the issues India is facing. Next is the litmus test for free speech. This article is about reasonable restrictions. Whenever you read Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, freedom of speech and expression, any other fundamental rights for that matter, we use this word reasonable restrictions. What is this reasonableness of a restriction? In this context, there are different things which have evolved in the United States of America. Let's not go all through these things. Let us understand imminent lawless action. So, if today any of the restriction has to be imposed on the fundamental rights or liberty of the citizens, whatever the action which they did, it shall lead to immediate lawlessness in that particular situation. So, in this case, either Bhima Koregaon issue or to that matter, any other things with regard to UP, a journalist was arrested for saying that in the midday meal program a chapati and roti and namak or salt is given along with it. So these are not creating any imminent lawlessness. So any liberty has to be affected. The doctrine is it has to lead to imminent lawless action. So that particular doctrine is being neglected in India. Voices grow loudest against Shah's pitch to push Hindi. You know that Hindi is not a national language. It's one among the languages recognized in the Constitution of India. It is also not the only official language. There are many other official languages. So, in this context, declaring Hindi is the wide as one national language is in the wider agenda of RSS. One nation, one language, one culture. So, see the ideology difference. RSS believes that unity of India can be brought in through uniformity. And other way around, our constitution believes that the unity of India can be achieved through diversity. So why now? 370, after this again Hindi. Why all these now? We have greater issues to be focused. Economy is in doldrums. Why can't we focus all our energies on economy, rebuilding the economy? Why are we not doing this? That is one big $1 million question to me. NRC will be compiled in Haryana too. Already it is a mess in Assam. Now they want to take up it in Haryana. So obviously the stateless citizens are bound to increase in every state. And the public resources will be spent on building new detention centers in the name of the national security. The madness to its peaks. Thank you very much. Have a great day.